The guy that sticks out to me that I think is going to be a hot commodity heading into next season and has shown some flashes this year. I'm really impressed with what he is doing. That's Darius Slayton. I think Darius Slayton is a guy that's been ultra impressive. He's yet another one of my unsung heroes in Kings Classic and put up a huge week last week, couple touchdowns. But you said Robert Woods. That reminded me of a guy on the opposite end of the spectrum there on the Rams, and that's Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks, need to put him on a milk carton or something because that dude's been MIA all season. He actually became a free agent in one of my money leagues, and I added him, and I was excited to get him. He's like my wide receiver 3, and honestly, he has not done anything for me in the 4 weeks that I've had him. And you watch them play, and it's dominated by Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, and now Tyler Higbee, kind of getting in the mix there as well. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Brandon Cooks if he's even around with the Rams next season.
Yeah, I mean, I assume he's got to be costing them quite a bit of money, and like you said, we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be shakeups. We know there'll be certain players. Like I said, I don't know who's all free agents here and who could move on and who can't. But, I assume most of the big boys are kind of set in stone, but we'll just have to wait and see. But it's usually the wide receiver 2s and 3s that move around, and you kind of go, well, this guy moved here, and this could be different, and so we'll have to see how that all plays out. All right, let's move on to just the complete mess that we like to call the tight ends. Man, when we talked about this in the off season. We knew that there's going to be consistency problems at the tight end position. So, if you can stream them, that would be good. Here's some streaming options. We threw that out at you. And I still feel good about the picks we promoted. Evan Ingram, obviously Ertz and Kelly and Kittle, but, they were pretty high. But, but it just couldn't stay healthy. I mean, Hunter Henry, missed some games. Zach Ertz hasn't been great, but he's second in total points, but he's 69% consistency. We talked about Jared Cook. Interestingly enough, Jared Cook has kind of turned it around. He was really bad early in the year. Now he's at 64%. So he's actually now back in the top 10, 7th in total points. Sadly, I kind of dumped him in most leagues because I thought he was going to be nothing, and he's kind of turned it around. So good for you if you've got him. But it's just been a mess. We've got Kelsey first, total points, 100% consistent. Hunter Henry, 89%, but hasn't played all the games. Evan Ingram, 88%, hasn't played all the games. Austin Hooper, 80%, missed 3 games. Kittle's missed a couple games, but he's 73%. And that's the thing. It's Ertz and Kittle are 2nd and 5th in total points, but 73%, 69% means that they're right in there with everybody else. And yet, if you had to draft them, you had to get them in the 2nd, 3rd round. I don't have them hardly in any leagues. The only league I have Kelsey in was in the Scott Fish Bowl because you got 1.5 for tight ends, and so I jumped on him early. Again, got me in the playoffs, but it wasn't certainly didn't work out the best for me. But after that, you get in, below 70%. There's only 4 or 5 total tight ends that are even above 50% after that, and that's Ertz, Waller, Cook, Andrews, and Goddard. Oh, and Greg Olson's at 50%, but now he's hurt. It's just been a mess, and I don't see it getting any better next year, to be honest with you. I think it's one of those where you've got to get one of these, I'll say, top 8 guys, and if you don't, you're rolling the dice every week.
Well, and I look at it too. We were talking about what running backs I have on my team, and the trend here is the teams that I have some questionable running backs on. I have some solid tight ends. I've got Kelsey, Ertz, and Mark Andrews in the leagues that I'm still in the playoffs. I got one playoff team where I'm having to rock Jason Witten most weeks, and I've had to play some matchups there. But it doesn't give me a lot of hope for anything to come along and save this. I think maybe O.J. Howard could be a guy who might show some signs of life next year. I don't really know about him. Tyler Higbee's a guy that's really come on here at the end that can breathe some life into this position too. He's looked extremely solid in the absence of Gerald Everett. But a couple of guys that I'm hoping are going to ride in and save this thing are rookies this year. Noah Fant and T.J. Hawkins of the world. I think those guys with a year under their belt, especially if Denver can get somebody in there that can play quarterback. I don't know if Drew Lock's the answer or not, but he looked good in limited action he's gotten this season. Those could be a couple of guys that could be some value picks that could really have some promise at this position, that we looked at kind of going into this year too. Will Dissly's a guy that'll come back as well, hopefully, and be healthy and be able to step in there and maybe become a consistent option again also.
Right. And I think that's what we'll have to look at. It's going to be one of those, either you got to get them early or you've got to take some chances and maybe you get two of them in the 9th and 10th round. Like you said, get a Will Dissly and Ian Thomas or somebody.
And Mark Andrews is the guy that you didn't get super early this year. So he's that guy, that has really been solid. 4th in total points, 62% consistent. And a lot of that, obviously because of Lamar Jackson.
Right. Like I'm riding Ian Thomas in the Kings Classic because I was basically playing Russian or tight end roulette every week. And I saw Thomas was still sitting out there available when I knew that Olsen may or may not have played last week. So I jumped on him, grabbed him, for $2 because people kind of were forgetting about bidding on him. And, he got me 17 points. So, I mean, again, it made the difference pretty much with me beating Mike Clay. Now Olsen may come back this week. I can't believe they would do that with him. I mean, it's a concussion protocol. I mean, why would you go back out there when you have there's no playoffs to play for? I don't think that Carolina does.
Well, and especially too with the history he's had with injuries, but concussions as well.
Right.
Already.
I mean, my thought is leave him out. I mean, why take that chance? But I know they're athletes and they're paid big money, and I suppose if I was him, I'd want to be out there too. But my thought is he'll be retiring in the off season, and Ian Thomas will be a great pick, and hopefully I'll get him on a bunch of my teams. But as we move down the list, like I said, some disappointments this year. Jack Doyle, O.J. Howard. We can't rant enough about that one. Njoku, Delaney Walker, Jimmy Graham. I mean, all of these guys, we expected more. I mean, we didn't expect them to be great, but we expected to at least get some consistency. I think the biggest disappointment to me, because I didn't draft O.J. Howard. I saw Bruce Arians was a coach. I was kind of like, he's not a big fan of tight ends. I know a lot of people argued with me at that point back in the season, but I was all in back on Delaney Walker being healthy again and coming back and playing. But I think he's over the hill. I mean, he only played 7 games. Even in those games, he had 2 clutch games, and I got to see one of them the first game of the year when he caught 2 touchdowns against the Browns. So there we go. And he hasn't done anything all year since. And Jonnu Smith came in and hasn't done much better. But that's because they got Ryan Tannehill. They got a guy with an arm. He's been throwing more to A.J. Brown and deeper passes. So, and obviously Derrick Henry has been a machine. So there's that. Any other guys that you see there that, maybe could turn their season around? I know you talked about the younger guys, but you think any of these veterans can get back on to the right path next year, or are they all going to be guys we just don't mess with?
I mean, the only guy that I can see here that maybe could potentially do something is maybe Mike Gesicki, possibly. Waiting for him to figure it out for a while. It's funny, in our NastyCast Slack channel, we have a football channel as well, and one of our listeners there, our guy Ben from Canada, he threw up the message there, rolling with Fitzmagic, Gesicki, and gosh, who was the third Miami Dolphin? But he's rolling with 3 Miami Dolphins. Maybe it's Devontae Parker. I don't know.
Wow.
But he's got his playoff hopes pinned on these 3 guys as far as playoffs. So that's something right there too. I was talking about Tannehill earlier. That's what makes this a fun time of year. People are counting on some Fitzmagic to get him through. But he can be a guy that just kind of lack of nobody else being there could step up and be an option. He's going to cost you nothing in drafts, and depending on what they do at quarterback. If they've got a guy that can sling it like Fitzmagic that has no problem getting it down the field, he's worth a late-round pick, I think, to throw on your bench and see what happens.
Right, yeah, and I think, again, there'll probably be some movement in the offseason. We'll see, guys go to different teams, might be better situations. Quarterbacks will move around. That usually has a little bit to do with the tight end situation as well. And it'll be interesting in Philadelphia if they get some real wide receivers to go along with Alshon Jeffrey, and whether or not that's Deshaun Jackson or not. Whether or not Dallas Goedert kind of disappears off the face of the earth, because right now Goddard is there, earning some clutch games. He's 15th in total points. He's 58% consistent. But it's mostly because, like you said, they have nobody else to throw to, so they have Ertz and Goddard out on the field at the same time because they need somebody to catch the ball. And, especially the other night, obviously in the bad weather, they weren't be able to probably throw the ball very deep. And so they certainly racked up some fantasy points there. But it's been certainly a struggle for Wentz. And, if he can get some guys, we might see Ertz probably maybe be a little bit more effective, and maybe we need less Dallas Goedert. But, I definitely won't be drafting Goddard, but there certainly will be people who look at the numbers and go, wow, geez, he might be a good wide receiver one or tight end one, but I would hope not. So any other thoughts, tight ends overall? Basically, folks, if you're out there, if you're still in the fantasy playoffs, congratulations. Hopefully you made it to the playoffs and your consistency paid off. The best thing, I think, Ron, I'll let you give your thoughts too, but is just make sure you feel comfortable and feel good about the guys you're putting in. I know, like you said, you're going to get lots of questions. Should I play Tannehill over Aaron Rodgers? And I always tell people, what answer do you want to give if you lose? Do you want to say, I lost in my fantasy playoffs because I played Tannehill over Aaron Rodgers? Or do you want to say, I lost my fantasy playoffs? Who's your quarterback? Aaron Rodgers. Oh, yeah, he had a bad week. You're going to feel much better about that. But if you play Tannehill and he gets 15 points and Rodgers goes off and throws 3 touchdowns, you're going to kick yourself for the rest of the year. So, feel good about the choices you're making. Yes, there are going to be some matchup choices between similar players in talent. That's different. If you're trying to decide, like my touchdown league, I was trying to decide between Mark Ingram and, Melvin Gordon. They both are talented. They both have the potential to get rushing touchdowns. I went with, the better matchup because of the fact that, Ingram was playing tonight against the Jets. Gordon's playing at home, but he's playing against the Vikings. That could be a shootout, but shootout usually means more Eckler. So I took Ingram. Ingram scored. But they're similar players in my mind, especially in a touchdown-only league. If it was a different, more yards and stuff like that, I probably would have went Gordon. But that's the kind of stuff you got to think about. And if you have any questions, don't forget to hit us up. We're both on Twitter. You got Ron at The Real Ma Day. You got me at Bob_Lung. Definitely hit us up. I'd be more than happy to help you out. So, Ron, I'll put it in your hands for some last words of your thoughts for people when they get kind of in the playoffs and kind of try to outcoach themselves.
Well, it's funny because I find it with my history, you start to get cute and you start to do those things like Tannehill for whoever and start to make these last minute changes, and it's more often than not come around to bite me in the ass when I've done it, and you're sitting there wishing you would have just went with the guys that you drafted because it's great to get these shiny toys throughout the season, but I think we get caught up sometimes trying to look like the smartest guy in the room all the time, and it's a lot cooler of a story to say, man. I was going into that playoff matchup and I had to start Ryan Tannehill and Mike Gesicki and I ended up winning, and it's a better story, but I don't think it ends up happening that way more often than not. So you draft these guys for a reason. You draft Patrick Mahomes in the second and third round to get you that playoffs, get you to playoffs, get you that championship. You got to roll with those guys as much as you can. Now, if you've been streaming guys and you're throwing in, the Phillip Rivers of the world and the Kirk Cousins of the world, and you go with Ryan Tannehill, that makes a hell of a lot more sense than starting him over. Right. Yeah, starting him over any of those top guys that you got in those first maybe, that 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round range.
Right, but other things to look out, check for weather. That's a big deal for those of you, that might have, had players in that Eagles-Giants game. Obviously there were some struggles there, but look for weather, high winds, rain, snow, sleet, whatever. Make sure you pay attention to that, especially for your kickers. If you got kickers in your league, check out the conditions for them. Take a guy kicking indoors versus outdoors in bad weather. There's lots of things to look at. But in the end, make sure you feel comfortable with the team you're putting out there. I'm definitely consistency, which means put the guys in there that got you there. Now I get it if they're injured or if there's matchups